Welcome back. Now, kidnapping for ransom is still very much a big headache in Nigeria. In fact, if the latest report on the subject by research firm SBM Intelligence is anything to go by, then kidnapping for ransom has become, quote, a lucrative economy in the country. Now, according to the report titled Economics of Nigeria's Kidnap Industry, a staggering 2.56 billion naira, equivalent to $1.66 million, was paid in ransom within just 1 year. The figure revealed the alarming scale and, quote, profitability of kidnapping in the country, highlighting a deepening security challenge with widespread social and economic consequences. Breaking things down now, SBM Intelligence revealed that out of a total ransom demand of 48 billion naira, only 2.57 billion naira was actually paid, adding that no fewer than 4,722 people were kidnapped across at least 997 incidents, with at least 762 victims killed during the same period. Now, that is very worrying. According to the report, Zamfara, Kaduna, and Katsina State recorded the highest number of kidnapping incidents and victims, highlighting these areas as the epicenters of Nigeria's escalating kidnapping crisis. And I should say this is not a surprise at all. Another interesting and worrying angle to the report is that the kidnappers are now inflating ransom demands to offset the depreciation of the naira. So these guys are applying some serious economics to their criminal enterprise. The report cited one incident in Delta State where kidnappers made a ransom demand of a whopping 30 billion naira. It also cited the case of Justice Haruna Michelia, who was kidnapped by a Boko Haram faction and later released. The report said 766 million naira was paid as ransom for his release. Now, these are just staggering figures by every stretch. The research firm underscored the urgent need for systematic intervention to break the cycle of kidnappings, emphasizing that the government must adopt a dedicated and strategic approach to effectively resolve the crisis. It also highlights that cutting off kidnappers' financial lifelines now through the use of advanced tracing technologies is crucial to staving them off their profits. Well, joining me on the program now to shed more light on that report is Kehinde Giwa, who is a security analyst at SBM Intelligence. He joins us, of course, from Lagos. Kehinde, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Well, the first question I want to ask you is, how exactly did you arrive at these figures of over 2 billion? How did you arrive at it? How did you put all of this together?
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon. It is pertinent to note that SBM has a yearly report on kidnapping in Nigeria, because kidnapping has, metamorphosized from an opportunistic crime or from a random crime or from, a regular hit and run crime. It has metamorphosized into a major driver in Nigeria's economic climate. So SBM Intelligence has been doing this for 5 years. One of the things we do is to have sources, primary sources and secondary sources, in which we use in generating all of these figures. We have sources and we have our field analysts, all over the country. So secondary sources, one of the ways we generate all of the numbers, and all of these figures and these numbers that you see, is that we collate the total number of incidents on a daily basis. That is what we have done in the last 1 year to put together all of these numbers. And of course, we cannot ascertain, there are some incidents where a ransom was demanded, while there are some incidents where the ransom, it was not ascertained whether the ransom was paid. But we can categorically state that all of the numbers were put together by daily collation from our primary sources on the field and from our secondary sources online. So all of the figures and all of the numbers are very, very much intact and correct. So we did that by a daily collection of all the incidents in Nigeria, all of the kidnap incidents in Nigeria, because on a daily basis we have nothing less than 15 kidnapping incidents across the country. And for every kidnap incident, the motive is financial gain. It has gone beyond an opportunistic crime. It has gone beyond a hit-and-run crime. The main purpose why attackers kidnap civilians now, primarily, is to make money. And,
I understand that. The reason why I asked you that question about the figure is because we know we have this culture of silence when it comes to ransom payment. You know, people don't actually disclose. In most cases, people get released and they just would not tell you how much they paid, for instance, to get themselves released. So I'm just wondering if that was not a challenge and how you were able to overcome this challenge of non-disclosure to put this figure together. I mean, we're talking about 2-point-something billion here.
Yes, the numbers, the imbalance in the numbers is an attestation of this challenge. 48 billion was demanded by kidnappers and only 2.5 billion was paid by the hostages, which is just about 5% of the money demanded. So you can imagine the challenge it took, you know, in balancing the numbers. But of course, like I said, for every time there is a kidnapping incident, we drill into the incident to make our findings, to make our investigations. In every incident, there must, at least, if there are 5 incidents, 4 or 3 out of those incidents, there must be a ransom demanded. And once there is a ransom demanded, it's either a ransom is paid or something is paid, you know, in exchange of that money. It could be in logistics, it could be money, it could be motorcycles, it could be drugs for the attackers. Something is always paid to secure the release of these civilians.
So, like for instance, you said, you know, 48 billion was demanded. How did you arrive at that figure? From secondary sources? Were people actually disclosing how much, for instance, these kidnappers were demanding of them and all of that? Or you just relied on secondary sources, for instance, what is reported in the newspaper, what is reported in the media generally?
Well, like I said, it's a combination of primary and secondary sources. A source is an asset for information. And in this case, we don't just dig deep for the information. We go straight in what we call the intelligence gathering. So we have primary sources all across the country. I, as a person, as an analyst, I have sources in almost every state in the country. And once there's a kidnapping incident, I will be informed. And most times, when the kidnapper, for example, I spoke with a kidnapped victim yesterday, and she narrated her ordeal for me. So when most of these kidnapped victims have been released, they always come to us. They always come to me, and they will say, "Oh, when I was in captivity, the kidnappers demanded this." It's not like SBM and intelligence has a direct source or a direct proximity to these kidnappers, but we can say that we have, you know, some form of contact with the victims, and these victims, you know, narrate all of these things to us. And in addition, of course, secondary sources reported, you know, online. When kidnappers demand their ransom, they put it out there online. When there's a mass abduction, an abduction of more than 5 people, they put it out there. When there is a mass abduction in a church or in a school, if they kidnap about 300 students from a school, they will put it out there that we want 500 million. They put it out there to the face of the government. So we can also use that, you know, to ascertain, you know, all of the monies in which, you know, it got to 48 billion. We should say that it could be more than that. But from our independent verifications, from our field analysts, we're able to come to 48 billion.
And did you find out where these monies are going to? I mean, this kidnappers collect these monies. Where are the monies ending up?
So it's pertinent to give a brief overview that a kidnapping incident is different from kidnap for ransom. Once there is a kidnapping incident, the end goal, it's not an ideological move where we have terrorists who are killing or who are kidnapping for ideological motive. The end goal of a kidnapping incident is money, it's ransom. Now, 2 major things. What do these kidnappers use the ransom to do? And why are they even kidnapping for ransom? The economy plays a major catalyst. It's a major catalyst, you know, it's a major driver for all of these incidents. Yes, you have random assassinations, you have armed robberies, but the economy is a major driver. We have large syndicated bandits in the northwest. Every organized crime syndicates in Nigeria actually perpetrate kidnap from ransom, from Boko Haram to ISWAP to bandits to Fulani herdsmen. We have all of the data available to even cult gangs in Lagos. They perform, they perpetrate this violence. It's a violence. So what do they use this ransom to do? Number one, they use it to fund their operations. They use it to fund their logistics operations, banditry operations, terrorist operations. For example, the highest money that was paid, just like you read, the highest money that was paid was 766 million naira, September last year. What do these Boko Haram guys do with the money? They simply use it to recruit more foot soldiers. They simply use it to buy more motorcycles. They simply use it to fund their logistics and their campaign and to further enlarge
so the monies are going into the
their
economy
criminal
as well.
activities. Yes, it is going into the economy because when they collect this money, they buy drugs with this money. They buy arms with this money. They buy ammunition with this money. They transport themselves with this money. And it is imperative to state that criminals or these kidnappers also involve themselves in normal business activities as civilians. For example, farming. For example, mining. For example, cattle rearing. So when they get this money, they take this money into the economy. They buy cattle, they buy motorcycles, they buy arms and ammunitions, they buy motorcycles, they buy gun trucks. It is imperative to state that a lot of these criminals and kidnappers even have almost or more sophisticated weapons than even our security agents. Where are they getting the money to buy these weapons? That's the question you should ask. They are getting the money from the proceeds, of the kidnap incidents.
In the report, you talked about using technologies now to, cut off their lifeline, so to speak. Why do you think it's difficult, for instance, to use technology to trace the movement of this money, so that it can lead to probably arrest and then the cutting off of that lifeline?
Well, I think the intelligence gathered over in recent years has suggested that so many of these criminals don't collect the ransom by transfer. They collect it by cash, which is always difficult to trace. And the person, or we call them ransom bearer, the person who goes to deliver the ransom is also kidnapped or killed, in the process. So, number one, it is difficult to use financial technological schemes to dictate the transfer. Then you now ask yourself, when these criminals want to use the money, if somebody brings 10 million naira for them into a forest, how do they use the money? They simply go, to a arms dealer or a cattle, a village or a community, for example, and also use force to perpetrate another incident, or use the money in cash, to buy, all of these things, and it gets driven back into the economy. So it's very, very difficult to use technology to curb these movements, the flow of this money. One key thing is important. The government, or of course the National Security Advisor or the Chief of Defense Staff, then we need to curb all of the ungoverned spaces where these bandits actually hide. One of the reasons why we have a lot of mass abductions or we have a lot of kidnap and ransom incidents in the Northwest is because the Northwest is largely rural. The Northwest has twice the size of the Southwest or the Southeast. So it is very easy for these criminal guys or for these criminals to hide, and without them even being traced or tracked. And when a ransom bearer comes with the money, research has shown, data is available, about 20 of them were killed. They either killed this guy or, kidnap the guy to collect the money and take the money back into the economy.
I can understand. The problem of ungoverned space is actually a serious one, especially in the north of the country. There's no doubt about it. Now, something else I want to ask you is, one important part of your report talked about these kidnappers getting more sophisticated, trying to offset, trying to offset the effect of inflation now on what they get. So they know, for instance, that look, the naira is depreciating, and as a result of that, they are upping their ransom payment. Could you speak to us on that?
It is imperative to state that these kidnappers or these criminals or these assailants, they are very well informed about the state of the economy and the nature of the economy. One of the drivers behind the large amount of naira, both demanded and paid in this year, is the devaluation of our naira, or the instability of the Nigerian naira. If you look at in the past few years, the monies that were demanded and the monies that were paid, if you look at the equivalent of the dollar equivalent was about thousands of dollars, but this year we have $1.6 million. It means that the dollar is defeating the naira, and that alone is the reason why. Of course, that means there is inflation, that means that there is high cost of living, that means that the arms and the ammunition that these criminals are getting are becoming more expensive. So that translates into more money being demanded by the criminals, and that also translates into families going into penury. Families have to look for money. If in the last 1 year in Nigeria, families all over the country have churned out over 2 billion naira to secure the release of their loved ones, it just says a lot about the disadvantage effect it has on the families, and it says a lot about how much richer, so to speak, these bandits are getting become.
It's quite baffling that they are adjusting their rates now to align with probably the inflation figure and exchange rate. Yeah, quite baffling, and that they're getting more sophisticated. But overall, if you were speaking to the security agencies of this country, what exactly would you be telling them, especially with your discovery, with this report?
Well, the truth of the matter is, the crux of this report is more economical than even the security angle, because it has a lot to do with the state of the government. It has a lot to do with the state of our economy. The more deteriorating or the more bad the economy is, the more these rates would increase. The more bad the economy is, the more an average Nigerian will be recruited as a kidnapper. Anybody can be a kidnapper. You don't necessarily have to wear a tag that, I'm Boko Haram. The fact that you kidnapped somebody, you demanded money for the person's release, it means that you are leveraging on the poor economy of Nigeria. So it's two things. If I'm to speak as a security analyst to the national security advisor, to the president, the chief of defense staff, chief of army staff, I would say all of the ungoverned spaces in the northwest where all of these bandits hide should be completely obliterated by airstrikes. All of this, you are trying to engage bandits in a gun battle. Just like I said earlier, bandits have become sophisticated. They have sophisticated weapons. We see them attacking all of these attackers. Boko Haram, ISWAP, Lakurawa. We see them attacking military bases. We see them attacking police formations in the southeast. We see them attacking even politicians in the southwest. So engaging them in a gun battle might not necessarily be a long-lasting solution. So obliterating them by airstrikes, all of the ungoverned spaces, particularly in the northwest, you really cannot do that in the south because of the dense population. But from the security angle, that's a major factor. Another factor in curbing, all of this madness, so to speak, is that we need to also try as much as the security in Nigeria needs to try as much as possible to dismantle. We have over 30,000 bandit networks in Zamfara alone. So you can imagine the workload. Of course, the Nigerian security architecture is overstretched. We are dealing with a compendium of security problems: Boko Haram, Fulani herdsmen, IPOB militants, gangs, cultists. We are dealing with a lot. So that is not to say that we cannot actually nip all of this in the bud. Then from the economy angle, the economy has to improve. Every country, every state, every community that has a depreciating economy is only triggering or is only a catalyst for high crime rates, whether we like it or not, in any part of the world. The deeper the economy goes down, more crime rates. People would involve themselves in kidnappings for ransom, and these numbers are only going to increase based on the economy, which is going down. So the naira has to be stabilized. Inflation has to be brought down. The economy has, to start functioning appropriately. There needs to be more permanent reforms in the security aspect instead of just engaging bandits. All of that is not working again. We need to start picking out all of the forest. there are more than 30,000 bandits in Zamfara alone, and that state why Zamfara has kidnapped more people in Nigeria in the last 1 year, more than any other state in Nigeria.
Kende Giwa, security analyst, SBM Intelligence, thank you very much for coming on the program and shedding more light on that report. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us, don't go away. Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal. How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places, the Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On Digi 360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
Digi 360, dissecting the issues.